everyone, we are live here on the MIgardener channel. I am so excited for this episode because it's one that all of you have requested, and I figured I'd really do it live so that I could answer any questions that you all had, because for the vast majority of people, I think what I have done is seen as either challenging, unnecessary, impossible. There's a lot of different things that people can have an opinion on when it comes to going plant-based. And so I have a backstory that I'll share. As many of you know, I've really been on a mission to increase my health and increase my well-being. And I've also really tried to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk every step of the way. And I never wanted to come from a place of a holier than thou type approach, or I'm better than you, or this is what you should be doing approach, because I really think, honestly, starting off, the biggest thing that I have learned with the fact that, we're titling this Things That I've Learned, is that the big thing that I've learned in this entire experience is that if you listen to your body, you will have far greater success than anyone telling you what to do. The biggest thing is that when you eat whole foods and you eat a plant-based diet, not everything that was told to me is what works. So, from a lot of the books that you'll read, or a lot of the documentaries, or even YouTube videos that are out there, a lot of people are sharing what worked for them. And I think a lot of times people can get caught up in the fact that you hear a lot of great stuff about specific foods or specific diets. And I think a lot of that has to do with the law of numbers. You take a group of 1,000 people, chances are, because there's different body types, there's different genders. What works for a guy might not work for a girl. And so, I think that it's very important to stress is that there's a lot of differences. And the only way you can really tap into those differences is to really listen to what's working for you and not try to fight what's not working. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned firsthand through this experience. So a little backstory before we get into some questions and talking about things that I've learned throughout this experience. So the reason why I decided to go 100% plant-based is not because I really had a choice. It was a little bit before Thanksgiving, and I was actually going into the doctor for my eye. My eye was kind of bugging me. I had they call it blepharitis, but it's basically the tear duct, or the oil duct in your eyelash gets kind of blocked. It's very, very common. And then it gets a slight infection, and it causes some irritation. And I had a lot of filming to do. I had a couple presentations to do, and I couldn't just let that go. It wasn't going to go away on its own, so I had to go get a little medication for it. So I went in for that, and I really honestly didn't think anything more than that. And I went in and, as normal, standard procedure, check your height, check your weight, and I sat down and checked my blood pressure. And I've always been a type A personality. I've always pretty much eaten whatever I wanted. I'm very health conscious, but in terms of eating as healthy as I probably could, I will be the first to admit I did not eat as healthy as I could. That combined with chronic anxiety, which I only recently found out was hereditary in my family. That combined with not a healthy diet, poor sleep schedule, and not as much exercise as I really would love, I went into things pretty much setting myself up for failure. Got my blood pressure checked, and the doctor had a look on her face that I'll never forget. And anyone that's watching knows where I'm coming from with this, that when a nurse that's checked thousands of people's blood pressure looks at you and says, we need to double check this. I said, what do you mean we need to double check this? She goes, I tested your blood pressure at 157 over 110. And not knowing a whole lot about blood pressure, because granted my age and all that kind of stuff is usually not a problem. Granted, I didn't know a whole lot about blood pressure, but I knew that was bad. I knew that was bad. I took, basic health class in high school. I knew that was bad. And so, it was concerning to me, but I just said, okay, well, we're going to test it again. And so she waited 5 minutes, tested again, and the test came back at 150 over 97. So she told me, she said, you didn't come in for high blood pressure. I can't really treat you for high blood pressure. You came in for your eye. I can do that. That's up to you if you'd like to have your blood pressure assessed. So I said, oh, well, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe I just was worked up or whatever. I don't even know. I was not worked up, but I thought maybe I might have been. So I went home and I just almost shrugged it off, to be honest. And a week later, I was at our local pharmacy. I said, you know what? I'm just going to check it again. I'm just going to check it again just to make sure. And sure enough, my blood pressure was 151 over 95. And so I said, you know what? Not going to wait. I'm not going to shrug it off. There's a problem. It's very sustained. It's elevated, and we're going to go in and do something about it. So I went in and I talked with my doctor. I said, what are my options? And she said, well, you can do one of two things. You can change your lifestyle, or you can get on blood pressure medication. So being someone that I didn't want to be on blood pressure medication, I said, you know what? I don't have any other choice. There's nothing else. There's nothing when your back is up against the wall. There's nothing you can do. You either do it or you don't. And I'm someone that when my back is up against the wall, I'm a fighter. I am not someone that's just going to take the lazy route. I'm not someone that's going to just say, yep, I'll just take medication. Because you know what? My whole approach to life is that those medications do more harm than good. They create a system of dependency where psychologically you lose that ability to fight. You lose that ability to, and granted, in certain cases, I will say in certain cases, for those that are watching, if you have a history of very high blood pressure, there are certain cases where being medicated along with a lifestyle change is usually recommended. In my case, it was fixable, especially with my age, the fact that my arteries were still in very good health. They ran a whole lot of diagnostics and said anything that you do will be a benefit to you later on. So if you want to fix your lifestyle, go for it. And so I came home, told Cindy, I said, you know what? Surprise, we're going plant-based. We're going whole foods plant-based. I cut out meat, I cut out cheese, I cut out dairy, and I cut out salt, and I cut out heavily refined oils. So you're probably thinking to yourself, Luke, what on earth did you eat? And I think the silver lining to that is I ate a lot of stuff. It was a lot of stuff that I'd eaten before. I just got to eat more of it. And I found through doing that I also did exercise. I was very active. I still am. I try to be as active as humanly possible while working a job at home. It's sometimes difficult to get out and exercise, especially with the very cold weather we've had, but getting into it, stay active. We have a bike I ride. I try to do 30 minutes of extremely physical activity, and then I try to get at least 10,000 steps a day on top of that physical activity. So right around 11 to 12,000 steps or so with a lot of physical activity. And I combine that with just plant-based, and I went in for a checkup, and the doctor was really pleased. I'd been on it was about 3 weeks of this great new lifestyle, and he looked at me and he goes, I'm impressed. I said, well, what was my blood pressure? And he said, well, your blood pressure is it was 125 over 71, I think, if I remember correctly. And that was incredible. I mean, that was a huge, I mean, for me, it's like, I've already done it. And here I am thinking, oh man, I'm so awesome. Here I am teaching a doctor what's up, and so I kind of got a little, a little cocky if I don't, if I can be honest with you all, I felt a little cocky. And I think that was another thing, is that you always have to stay humble, because as soon as I got a little cocky, that's when I noticed I started to slip. I didn't necessarily break away from my plant-based side of things, but I started to eat things that weren't as healthy, that were plant-based or whole foods based. So that was things that are they're all organic, no chemicals in them at all, but they might be processed. Convenience foods, that's kind of my guilty pleasure, to be honest. Again, this is all about transparency, because I want you all to take something from this and learn something from this, because this channel is about gardening, but it's also about improving your lifestyle. It's about living as healthy as possible. And I think what I've learned from this whole experience is worthwhile. And so if I'm being honest, it was just that those little things where, I kind of was like, well, I've been on this for 3 weeks, and I can have like a vegetarian kind of hot pocket. They make like a gluten-free style hot pocket type thing, and it's not exactly a hot pocket, but it's delicious. It's really good. I mean, it's really delicious. It's got like rice and black beans, and oh, it's amazing. But I started eating more of that, and I found that through that, then again, I started, I didn't exercise as rigorously. I did not drink as much water. I kind of fell back into some of those habits. Even though I kept a lot of them, I fell back into some of those habits that were the cause of a lot of my blood pressure. And I noticed that very slowly, the blood pressure started ticking up again. I have a blood pressure cuff that I test my blood pressure twice a day, keep it in check, kind of keep a mental log, and see commonalities and trends for where what my blood pressure reacts to. And I've been doing that daily. And, I as soon as I realized that I needed to stay humble, that I really didn't have anything to prove other than to myself, that, no one else cares. I mean, Cindy, I'm around, I did a lot of this lifestyle change for other people. It's very selfish just to sit back and eat a whole large pizza by yourself. Not that I ever did that, but it's very selfish. It's very just, I'm only here for me. But I'm on this earth for so much more than just myself. I'm here for Geneva. I'm here for Cindy. I'm here for all of you. I'm here to leave the earth a better place than when I first got here. And from my personal stance, it'd be very, very selfish for me not to do something. And when I learned that, when I realized that, I went back on it. I got back with the exercising. I got back with the regular water, the whole foods, and trying to stay away from processed food as much as possible. Not only sleeping on a regular time at night, not staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning like I did before. I noticed that it started going back down again. And I was so pleased. I was so pleased to see that. And so that was this first couple big things that I learned. And I guess before we get into the questions and some other things that I learned, I wanted to give you all a progress report. So it's officially been, well, it's over 2 months, but whatever. We'll just say, for all intents and purposes, it's 2 months. So in 2 months of eating a fully plant-based whole foods diet, my average blood pressure is right around 130 over roughly 70. So 130 over 70 is my average. And that goes down. Like this morning, my blood pressure was 118 over 70, which was like that was fantastic. That was incredible. But throughout the day when you got some things that are stressing you or bugging you or whatever, I find that my blood pressure can rise up to 130 or so, 135 at like the very highest. It never goes much higher than that, maybe like 136 on a rare occasion. But man, from where I was to where I am now, my systolic and my diastolic blood pressures have dropped so much, and I mean, not only that, I've lost over 25 pounds. I mean, I'll stand up. I mean, I got nothing to hide here. I mean, a lot of people, you all have noticed in the videos, I've seen a lot of your comments saying, Luke, you look like you lost a lot of weight. I did. I lost a lot of weight. Underneath this cool MIgardener t-shirt here, you know, I'm feeling a lot better. And so one of the things that I dropped my blood pressure dramatically. I decreased the weight. I decreased the weight by 25 pounds, maybe even a little bit more. I haven't weighed myself recently because I can feel when I put on weight, and I haven't put on a whole lot of weight, I feel like. Another thing I've done is through the exercise, I've built a lot more muscle. I feel stronger even though I've lost more weight. And then the other thing that I've done is I've drastically reduced the amount of anxiety that I have. And I know you'll hear a lot of people say this, that when you go plant-based or you go whole foods, you think more clearly, you think more, you feel less frazzled, and you then also in return have less anxiety. There is a connection, a very strong connection to blood pressure and anxiety. When your blood pressure is increased, usually your anxiety is increased as well. So naturally, if you can decrease your anxiety, you're going to decrease your blood pressure. And I think that's why they've both gone hand in hand, is that I will also be honest and say that there were periods in my life through college where I would have panic attacks. I couldn't go to social gatherings. I felt like I was going crazy. And it's really led me to have a stronger calling to try to reach people that are having these issues, because I felt alone. I felt like I was the only one going through that. And that to me was defeating. I started falling into a little bit of depression, and I can't quite tell you all in words, but I felt so free, I guess is the word that if I could have one word to describe how I felt, it'd be free. I felt free from anxiety. I felt free from having a body that I didn't really feel ideal in. And I felt free from the constraints of what even the medical industry was telling me was one of my only routes and one of my only options. And doctors, I don't care what you say, they have, especially if you're a family doctor that you've grown up with. This doctor that I've grown up with has been just phenomenal, and he's watched me grow as a person and as an individual, and he's looking out for my best interest. But I think a lot of times doctors they assume that the vast majority of people don't want to go through with the rigorous lifestyle changes that are necessary. And so they say, look, this is an option for you. And so I felt free from that constraint of you have this option. And I felt like I had two paths rather than one, and I could choose. And so for a type A type personality that I have, I like to be in control. I like to choose my paths, and I like to choose my own destiny, because really, if someone else is choosing my destiny, I really feel like I have less control on my life, and someone else, I don't ever be a puppet on a string. And so I chose this for myself, and I chose this for the people that I love around me and for all of you, because I realized that if nothing at all, even if I failed and fall flat on my face, I know that I tried it and that I had another fallback option that I could go to. And I'm not ashamed enough. I'm not ashamed to say that is a fallback option if I were to fail. It's just I want to do what I want to do, and it just so happens to be working for me. Long term, it might be different. We'll follow up. You know me. We'll keep in touch. But it's one of those things that I did it because I had no other options. It was either I was going to do it or I wasn't. And so that's the good news. That's the really good news, is that, progress report, I feel incredible. Progress report is, I have had no negative side effects at all. One of the big things people concern about, we're going to get into some questions now. So I am kind of reading through some of the questions that they pop up. And one of the big things people ask is, what about your energy levels, Luke? Do I look like I am sleepy or tired? Let me tell you, since going plant-based and whole foods, really whole foods, plant-based that's where I chose to go. But I would call this more whole foods based, because I don't think there's anything wrong, and I will get into why I'm saying this. I don't think there's anything wrong with certain meats, like fish. I'm a huge advocate of fish. I think fish is a great and extremely important resource in a diet. But if there's other things available to you, then you have options. And I just choose not to eat a whole lot of meat in my whole foods approach, because I don't believe in a constrictive diet. I don't think it makes it too constrictive where people feel like they can't choose what works for them. So where was I going with this? So basically, for me, the idea of losing energy was not really a concern, because again, if you remember where I started, it was, I'm either going to try this and I'm going to give it 100%, 110% effort, or I'm not. I'm going to take the lazy way out. And so it was not a big concern for me. But looking back, there was never a day that I did not have any mental fatigue or tiredness. In fact, I actually slept better, folks. I was waking up on average of 2 to 3 times per night to get water because I was thirsty, to go to the bathroom because I then drank too much water, and my diet acted as kind of a diuretic that it'd flush it right through you. And that combined with high blood pressure, your body filters through much faster to try to relieve its organs of the waste that it's filtering. And so, and thank you so much, Jared Campbell. I appreciate the super chat. I really do, honestly. I really, really do appreciate it. So, because your body is trying to filter faster, you go through your liquids faster. And I was finding that I would be waking up and having very poor quality sleep. But I actually sleep soundly through the entire night. And I have nothing to hide behind. I mean, I'll tell you anything you want to hear. So not only has sleep been improved, but another question people constantly ask that is a very, I think, old school way of thinking that's been really pushed very heavily by the meat industry, that I will agree is it's no longer something we can really ignore. They are definitely in it for the money, and they certainly feel threatened, and they have educated and indoctrinated with people with the fact that you must have meat. You have to have meat. It's a protein source. It's the only way to get B12. It's the only way to, there's a lot of things like that. But the biggest thing people ask me is, even my parents ask me, Luke, are you getting enough protein? And let me start off by saying, yes, I am getting plenty of protein. So where I get my protein from is primarily legumes. You'd be shocked. Legumes account for roughly 80 to 90% of my protein intake. So with every meal, I'll throw in a bean. It might be lima beans. Just last night, we cooked up lima beans. I'm like, why haven't we eaten these? I never really loved them as a kid. I still don't really love them now. But there's something that I can grow at home that I can use as a protein source. And I found that they were not as bad as I thought from my childhood. Must have just been the way my mom was cooking them or something. You know how moms cook their food. Sometimes it's just the way it is. Same thing with Brussels sprouts. I hated Brussels sprouts as a kid. And now I love Brussels sprouts. It's all in how you prepare it and how fresh it is. But, getting back to the whole protein thing, I account for about 80% of my protein to come from legumes, beans, black beans, pinto beans, garbanzo beans, whatever, lentils. So the next thing that I account for my protein intake is just food in general. Food in general. This is a very common misconception that people fail to acknowledge, is that if you're eating something that is living or was living, you're going to be intaking amino acids. Amino acids are what make up DNA. Okay, so anytime you consume DNA, which is basically like tissue of any kind, it could be animal or plant, you're going to be getting protein. Okay, this is a very common misconception. The thing is that you can get a ton of protein from greens. So we consume a lot of salads. Before, I was maybe having a salad about 2 to 3 times a week. Now we quite literally have a salad, a huge salad now too. Not just a side salad, but a huge salad about once a day. And that is where I get a lot of my greens, fiber, and protein from, because you can get protein from that. Things like oranges. We're having a lot more water, obviously. Water is incredible for you, and I don't think enough people are drinking their daily required dose of water. But the other liquid we have is that are like whole fruit juices, like real orange juice, not from concentrate garbage, but the real orange juice, the stuff that tastes like you just squeezed an orange. That is the stuff that we've been eating. And you'll be surprised. Look on the back label. Even if you go to Tropicana, that's certainly better than like high C. Don't ever go with high C. It's just bottled up chemicals pretty much. So if you go with Tropicana, look at the back. You'd be surprised. In one serving, there's 2 grams of protein. Now, 2 grams, you might think, 2 grams. But to be honest, 2 grams of protein is a lot of protein for just a glass of orange juice. And so you have to put everything in perspective, that if our standards for protein are set by the meat industry, they're obviously going to be very high, because you're essentially eating muscle or muscle tissue, which is extremely high in protein. But if you kind of level the playing field a little bit and say this is the protein that's available, you'll find that I think the average protein consumption to not only sustain life but also build muscle is somewhere around here. I think this is not even an argument, that what I have found is that the amount of things people say you need to live is way higher, because they have a financial gain, they have skin in the game, and so they would love you to think that it's up here. So you'd think someone down here is malnourished, you'd think someone down here is protein deficient, or sorry, I gotta block this person here. Okay, there we go. So you'd think you'd think someone down here is malnourished or protein deficient or something like that, but really there's all this extra that you're getting that your body doesn't always need. Prime example for that is protein. People that have a diet very, very high in protein, you'll find that oftentimes their system doesn't know what to do with that extra protein. And so it actually stresses out the kidney function and the liver function, because there's too much protein. And then another thing that you'll find is like with, for instance, sodium is a big one that a lot of people have been up in arms about. People have said, sodium's not bad for you. I don't know where you're getting this from. Sodium is terrible for you. Sodium occurs naturally in your foods, and the FDA says that the average diet should contain around 2,000 milligrams of sodium. 2,000 milligrams. That is what is that? My math brain's not working. Someone can do the math for me in grams. I think it's 20 grams. 20 times, 20 grams, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. 2,000 milligrams, I think, is 20 grams, if I'm carrying the decimal correctly. And so 20 grams, that's like taking 20 paper clips, okay? 20 paper clips. Weigh that in your hand and look at just physically how much salt you're ingesting in 2,000 milligrams. Now, you'd be shocked to find that the average consumption is actually triple that. Triple. That is so mind-boggling that the average person is having close to 60 grams of salt, 60 grams of salt, that's a ton of sodium. And where they're getting a lot of that from is from processed food. Processed foods, you'll find, has so much sodium in it. And so what, people are, 2 grams. Okay, 2 grams. Okay, so, correct. So that's essentially two paper clips, which is a lot better. But my whole reasoning still doesn't change. The average person is consuming 3 times the FDA amount. I just don't have a calculator in front of me, so my math is off. But thank you for all of you that chimed in. So the FDA says around 2 grams of salt a day is kind of the suggested amount to not exceed. But what I've found is that salt is often way over added in foods. Even things like bread. It's hidden in everything. And you add it up, it adds up to be a lot. And granted, salt is important. Sodium is very important for body function. It is very, very important for body function because it is one of your, you have, it's one of your electrolytes. You have magnesium, you have sodium, you have calcium, you have potassium. There's electrolytes that are important for cardiovascular function, and basically just regular body function. So, but you don't need 2 grams of sodium. Food that has naturally occurring sodium, like celery. Celery is a great source of sodium. A lot of your greens, things like purslane. There's so much different foods that have sodium in them, and you don't need to add more salt. What I have found through, and this is another thing that I've learned, which I want to talk a little bit about, because all of you are saying, hey, would you give me some more things that you learned? The thing that I learned through this is that I actually like food more. It might be shocking to seem, but before, when I would have food that was heavily laden in salt, that food tasted very salty. It also increased the flavor of the food, but it tasted so salty that you tasted salt. But when I got off of salt, when I stopped adding salt to my diet or hyper adding, I might add a little pinch, if it's something like a potato, like a starch or like rice, something that's very bland, I might add a pinch, a very mindful, a conscious addition, that I'm not just like taking the whole salt shaker and just holding it over top, letting it pour out. Notice that food tastes a whole lot better. I have to season a lot less. And I use things like herbs to season my dishes. I'll use rosemary, thyme, oregano, parsley. We use cilantro like crazy. I love cilantro. It is such a versatile herb. We use it in everything. And I find that I have to salt a lot less because when you use fresh herbs and you use very aromatic herbs, the salt is a flavor enhancer. And so you have to add a lot less salt or, any salt to enhance the flavor. It's already been enhanced. And so that's another thing that I've learned is that you don't need salt for the food to taste good. It's just if your taste buds are very dependent on that salt, that you're going to obviously, you're going to realize the change a lot faster. For instance, when I took salt out of my diet, because salt does not really fit into that whole foods category, or plant-based category. It's been processed and the salt has been heavily concentrated. When I took salt out of my diet, we had my family over for dinner, and my dad's initial reaction, who I've been encouraging to eat plant-based, and I'm so proud of him. He's been making a lot of changes. He actually asked me what some recipes and asked to go shopping with me to see how I shop for my weekly groceries, which was a huge step. He took a bite. The very first bite of food he took when I was plant-based was, it's so bland. It needs salt. I'm like, what do you mean? It tastes great. And so, it's just things you get. And I'm used to it. Someone that is just beginning to be plant-based would have a hard time getting used to it. But I'm telling you from firsthand experience, if you can get past the first 3 to 4 days, you'll make it 2 months. You'll make it 3 months. You'll make it a year. It's really not difficult to to wean off of it once you're used to how it is. It very much is a difficult transition. Now, another thing that I've learned that always comes up is, well, Luke, don't you have any cravings? Don't you just want to consume like a large juicy steak? Well, of course. If I see someone eating that, I mean, I don't not consume meat for an ethical standpoint. A lot of other people that call themselves vegans, they take it from an ethical standpoint. That's not an ethical thing for me. It's a healthful thing for me. And so, of course, I'm like, wow, I would love to have a steak, but I don't consider it deprivation. I don't consider it deprivation because I know what I'm doing for my body, and I know that I feel so much better without it. I can't tell you how many times I'd have a steak and then afterwards have indigestion because the meat is so rich in fat and protein that my body has a hard time digesting it, and I find that I actually ended up with diarrhea. A lot of times people are they want to filter out their experiences to kind of sugarcoat things. My experience with eating plant-based is that all of the negative side effects that I had with the standard, well, I can't say standard American diet, but a more healthier, refined version of a standard American diet is gone. So I don't see any reason to get off of it. So I do see people chiming in here. I want to get to some of those, and we can get back to some other things that I've learned as well. So that 1870s homestead asks, are you not doing dairy? No, I'm not doing dairy. We have nut milks. Almond milk has been great. Almond milk, coconut milk, soy milk, rice milk, I don't really love, but if it's available, I'll have it, whatever. I don't complain. Let's put it that way. But I absolutely love the taste of almond milk now. I before found it quite bland. It's just when you have fat, lots of fat, it's very rich. Think of like coconut, like coconut milk, the canned coconut milk we make curries with it all the time. The fat content is so high in a young baby coconut that it just tastes rich, it tastes decadent. Sweetened condensed coconut milk is like, it's too sweet for me to even fathom even taking a teaspoon of, because it's incredibly rich. And so the milk that you get from the store, even if it has like 2% milk, it still has such a high fat content that it makes you feel so full and flavorful. But once you get off of that and you start realizing that there are other alternatives, you don't hate it. It's the same thing with salt. I missed it for like a day, and as soon as I realized that I didn't have an option, I just proceeded forward, and I found that I didn't miss milk as much as I thought, and so that's been fine. In terms of baking, we still have an occasional sweet treat. Shocking as it may seem, we still have Cindy made a totally plant-based chocolate mousse cheesecake, I guess. It still had like a breadcrumb and everything bottom, or not a breadcrumb, but like a granola crust bottom. I don't know what you call it. I don't bake, but she made one for our Christmas party that we went to, and it was outstanding. In fact, another thing that I did want to talk about was family gatherings, because that's another thing that people always ask. So I want to segue into that while we get some people that chiming in with their comments. So when it comes to family gatherings, people always ask, is it awkward? Is it hard? Do you find yourself tempted? The answer is no. In fact, we made a totally it was not a plant-based lasagna. It was a Whole Foods lasagna. There was no meat, there was no cheese, there was no dairy, but we used like real noodles. It wasn't like lasagna noodles, or it wasn't like zucchini noodles. I don't have a problem with zucchini noodles. It's just I really like regular noodles. So it was a organic whole grain noodle that was like a lasagna noodle, and so we did that. I used some of the spaghetti sauce that I made. I crumbled over they make it's soy amazing. I'm not sure. Cindy would know the name. She actually found it, and it's basically a ground beef substitute made from soybeans, kind of similar like a tofu, but it's much more meat-like. I crumbled some of that in. I mixed that in with the sauce. I added sliced mushrooms, sliced zucchini, and then I topped that with some. It's a vegan goat cheese or like a vegan cream cheese sour. They all kind of taste the same at that point, but it's like a vegan soft cheese. And then I sealed all that off, and I put on some nutritional yeast because that's like my fairy dust I put on everything. And so I put that on. I put that in the oven for about 45 minutes, and that's what I served. I actually served that at our family party, and along with a side of a little small slice of Cindy's amazing chocolate mousse cheesecake. And I will tell you what surprised me is I went into it thinking I'm going to be the only person having a slice of this, because they did have. My family's quite large. They bought a couple other trays of lasagna, but because it didn't fit in with what I was doing, I said, I'll bring my own pan. Kid you not, folks. Kid you not. My family is a very meat and potatoes family. But when you bring something interesting, as Cindy has found, because Cindy was actually, I wouldn't consider her a vegan, but she was plant-based when I met her before we were starting dating. She brought very much like plant-based vegan food to our family get-togethers. And the same thing is held true, that my family, and I think the general public, is willing to try something, and if it tastes really good, they don't have a problem continuing eating it. And what I found is that our lasagna, that had no meat, no cheese, no dairy, no added salt, and no refined oils, actually went faster. None. We didn't take home any. We brought a whole 9x13 pan, and it was smoked clean. I mean, it was gone. No leftovers for me, which I was a little disappointed about, if I'm being honest, because it was really good. But absolutely nothing left over. Everyone, in fact, said, they messaged me, and they texted me, and they said, Luke, I want your recipe. Give me that recipe. I want to make it for my friends. I have a friend that's vegan. I want to make it for him. My aunt, who was on a plant-based diet, she said, Luke, I have got to get that recipe. I've got to get that recipe. And even, big winner here, my dad tried it. And although he didn't like the mushrooms, he picked those off. It's a victory in my mind. And he said, I gotta hand it to you, Luke. It's pretty good. And he didn't mind it. So, and then we didn't even tell people that the cheesecake was totally free of meat, cheese, dairy, or anything like that. And people just devoured it, and they thought that it had those other foods in it, or those other food products in it, and they didn't even know. And then we said, surprise! This whole thing that you've been eating and loving has been, in agreement with how I've been eating for the past 2 months. And they said, wow. I could see how you don't have a problem doing this. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that, I would not be concerned about how people are going to think. Sure, you might have some eyebrows raised. Sure, you might get the questions like the protein question or the B12 question, or the, are you going to blow away in the wind question. That's something my grandma would always say, Luke, you better eat more, you're going to blow away in the wind. And so, you're going to get those. And if you just prepare for it and realize that you are doing this for yourself, but also for those around you, and really go into it with that. Don't go into it guns blazing, ready to get on the defensive. Really just go into it saying, I decided that this is something that I want to try, and I really want to do it for all of you. Really go into it with a different mindset, because what I found is that, when you open up yourself to looking very selfish, people will be overly critical. But if you give them a reason to, if you look at them and say, I'm really doing this for you. I want to be around on this earth so I can spend more time with you. Because family is huge for me. Family is absolutely paramount for me. It is the core of everything that I am about is family. And so when I say, I'm here for you, they say, whoa, I can't judge as much because he wants to do this for me. Well, it might seem weird, it might seem strange, and I might still have some questions. I can't judge him that much because he's really not doing it for himself. He's doing it for his family and the people around him. So that's a good way to approach it as well, and I feel that it really kind of nips all those weird questions in the bud. So anyways, I want to get back to some more questions. I got about 15 more minutes of these. I want to answer some questions that people might have. So let's ask them. I apparently have to block one more person here. Okay. So okay, let's answer some questions. Very good question from Revrit. Do you take vitamins? I don't actually take vitamins. I take vitamin D drop in the morning because here in Michigan it's near impossible to get vitamin D because the sun's just too low in the sky and we're inside because it's winter a lot. So I do take a vitamin D drop. But then also, I will occasionally, very occasionally, take a vitamin B12. I find that from between nutritional yeast and spirulina and kombucha, I get all the vitamin B12 that I need, plain and simple. There's really not a vitamin deficiency in terms of other vitamins because I'm getting those from. I have a heaping salad. I have. One day I'll go through all of the the food that I eat and the breakdown of the vitamins, but basically when I consume a whole foods plant-based diet, I really don't lack anything. In fact, I've actually logged so I could physically or visibly see what I might be lacking in, and really everything was off the charts. Everything was off the charts. It's so nutritious for you because you'll find also that when you get to another thing that I learned is that when you get into more of a whole foods plant-based diet, things are so much less processed. And when foods are processed, they either have to be fortified with nutrients through chemical like multivitamins have to be added to the food, or because they've been processed, all of those nutrients, they're completely void of nutrients, and you're literally just eating cardboard. You might as well just take cardboard, run it through a shredder, and use that as your pasta. You know what I mean? It really is just cardboard at the end of the day. Cardboard with salt and fat. At its simplest form, that's what it is. And I don't care what you say. If you look at the nutrients of cardboard versus the nutrients of any of your highly processed food, it's about the same. So that's that. I do not take vitamins, but I'm also not against taking vitamins either. If I had to, I would probably take vitamins. So, next question. Testing asks, what is your feeling about plants not having the vitamin content they used to due to soil nutrient depletion? Very good question. So I always advocate good, better, best. The best is grow it yourself so you know what you're growing it in. You can amend the soil with what you want. You're not spraying it with chemicals, and you're really truly getting the highest quality product. If you can't do that, go with organic. Organic is a great route, and oftentimes to be honest, you almost spend just about the same because on a whole foods diet, a lot of your food is already organic. You have fruits and vegetables that aren't always organic, but if you can go organic, the better. I think very valid point. Yeah, you don't want to necessarily just go with all hydroponic because hydroponic it's not bred for or grown for vitamins, even though it does have some vitamins naturally. It's just that the slow maturing process of a naturally grown vegetable has a lot more time to produce natural sugars. has a lot more time to build up more vitamin content and things like that. So I always advocate that, certainly, that is a concern. Okay. Okay. Let's get some more questions here. Angel Decoded asks a super great question. Did you have to adopt totally new recipes, or did you augment ones that's good for your family? What do you do about grains? Yes, actually, I really honestly, again, I'll tie this into something I learned. I learned that when I ate foods that I loved before, just a more revised version, I was not only more free of the cravings, but I was able to still feel more satisfied and satiated than had it been like a broken down meal or like a dissected meal with the things that I could eat. So a very prime example of that is like the lasagna that I said. But another prime example are things like tacos. Mrs. MIgardener and I, tacos are probably up there and probably one of our favorite foods. But obviously tacos are predominantly not healthy, if I'm being honest. So when it comes to tacos, what we do is we just we make tacos from either potatoes, or we'll make tacos from, we'll take tofu. Tofu is a great protein source. It's incredible. We'll take tofu, or even, what is it called? Tempeh. We'll take tempeh and slice those up. They're very meaty, they're very firm, they have a great texture. So we'll use either potatoes, tempeh, or tofu, and we'll use that. We'll crumble over some cilantro, of course, and then we'll add in our spices, some cumin, paprika, a little bit of red pepper flakes here and there. You make a great salsa using roasted garlic, roasted tomato, and a little bit of jalapeno pepper. Throw that into the blender, make that like a liquid sauce. That's just incredible, incredible little bit of flavor over top of the tacos. And then you can actually make a crema, like a sour cream, from cashews. You just soak some cashews, add a little bit of water, blend that up till it's really smooth, even add a little bit of a potato to kind of absorb some of that moisture, really make it more thick and creamy, like a sour cream. And you'd almost never know. I mean, crema on itself is just kind of a cooling cheese, liquid cheese, that has hardly any flavor at all. And so you throw it in the fridge for a little bit, then throw that on there, and it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. So, it's one of those things that you stick to what you love to eat. Oops, sorry about that. Battery's running a little bit low. So you stick to what you love to eat, and you don't deviate from that, and you'll find that you're able to stick with things a lot more and enjoy the food that you're eating a lot more. So let's see here. Another great question. So many people. Soy is bad for you. That's completely not true. Soy is not bad for you. It's true. A lot of soy is GMO, but the thing is a lot of like tofu, tempeh, things like that, they're all, at least in my experience, GMO free. The GMO Project verified. It's a great way to look at things. Because on a plant-based diet, you're consuming a lot of fruits and vegetables. If you're concerned about GMOs, simply look for that little GMO Project verified. It's becoming extremely popular, and even though we live pretty much almost in the middle of nowhere, it's not what you consider a hip town. The closest plant-based like vegan restaurant is probably close to 60 miles away, if not more. So we're not in a very hip location. It's very much a blue collar manufacturing zone, meat and potatoes belt. And so even in our little town, we still have a lot of things, more things I've ever seen before that are non-GMO Project verified. Soy is not bad for you. There's a long-standing myth that soy will increase your okay, I gotta get this out of the way because this is bugging the living daylights out of me. If I see it again, I'm gonna block somebody, and I'm serious. I don't want to see this because it's so false, it's unbelievable. People say that eating soy will increase your hormone levels and cause you to become less manly. Basically, it restricts it increases your estrogen and decreases your testosterone. It's completely bogus. It's been so debunked. It is absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And it is true that soy has a chemical that can inhibit testosterone function. The problem is just like the myth about eating green potatoes or eating apple seeds. They have such a small amount of that chemical that you would have to eat. You could eat like this much tofu and you still would not become any more of a woman, okay? And I am very confident in my manliness. Ask Cindy, okay? I have no problem working out, breaking a sweat. It's one of those things. God, the notifications are real tonight. Holy smokes! I'm sorry, guys. So it's one of those things. I don't feel any less of a man because I eat tofu and soy. It is just absolutely ridiculous to think that. So I agree with the fact that a lot of soy is GMO, but other than that is where we don't agree at all. I think we got time for like maybe 2 more questions, and then I'll get into some final thoughts about eating plant-based because my battery is running a little bit low. Let's see here. Okay, Angel Dakota asks, how'd you get away from refined grains? Well, pretty simple is you just do it. I mean, it's really, as simple as that. I mean, Nike has a great slogan, just do it. To get away from refined grains, you go to the store, and you can find things. There are many options available, or learn to bake. People oftentimes look at me like I'm some Renaissance man. They're like, you bake your own bread? What? I'm like, yeah, I bake my own bread. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it. I get to choose the ingredients, and it's so much better tasting than something loaded with all these chemicals. I mean, it's really ridiculous that we've gotten so accusational about different things that people do, because it's like, yes, I bake my own bread. In fact, we've seen a huge craze in fresh baked bread because it just tastes better. But to answer your question, to get away from all the refined grains, we literally just go with things that say whole grain, or a lot of your ancient grains. Gluten-free is a great option. I don't consume a lot of gluten-free, but gluten-free is an option. But you can also go to the store, buy whole grains, and grind it yourself. Just buy a really good blender, blend it up into a flour, make your own flour at home, or you can get a flour mill. Very inexpensive. You can find them on Amazon, and you make your own flour. You might feel like a hillbilly. You might feel like a homesteader redneck, but the problem is that they're all probably going to outlive most of us. So, all the people that homestead, that have been doing this for years, they're now the trendy people, and they're teaching all the people in an urban environment to now do this. And people are now flocking to YouTube, and you see all these channels that do homesteading things that were, once the laughing stock of, all the, oh, you're probably a prepper, or, oh, you're probably afraid to, breathe the air outside. They're now the people that are really setting the standards for how we should be preparing our food, because we've gotten so away from it. Our culture of I need it now within 2 seconds, otherwise it's not fast enough, is really been the most dangerous thing for our society, because then companies bank on that convenience. I'm all for free market. I'm all for open business. If there's a market there, and someone has the demand, it shouldn't be, whether it's good or bad is totally not the case. What I'm saying is that they tapped into a convenience market, and the American diet just loved convenience. They're like, oh, come on, I don't want to wait 5 minutes to put something in the oven. I want to just put it in the microwave. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just led to just so many ready-made foods that the biggest thing that I found has been surprising is when I go shopping at the grocery store, I literally avoid like 90% of the grocery store. I stick to the outskirts. That's a great method. And I just stick to the sides of the grocery store. And I find that I actually end up spending less on my groceries because I'm not enticed to have some of the ready-made food and stuff. But then also, I find that people are really surprised when they see my cart when I go to checkout. They're like, "Holy cow!" Like, are you okay? Are you with us here? Are you on Earth? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a whole foods based diet, and people are like the checkout ladies are always really keen to hear at what I'm doing, and so people are just so. I mean, the checkout ladies see 24 packs of pop going through their thing every day, all day, 24 hours a day. And then when they see like nothing but vegetables rolled on their aisle, they're like, whoa, 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 something's up. Like someone call the men in white jackets. Like we have a psycho on our hands here. And it's like, no, I mean, this is really working for me. And then it helps when they see somebody that's then feeling really good about themselves, that's slim and great looking, if I don't say so myself. So, if you feel great about yourself and you look great, you look healthy, they look at themselves and say, okay, well, he's not crazy, so I'll ask him why he does it. So, it definitely is pretty cool to be able to educate someone that might be interested. So let's answer some more questions here, and then I can close. We'll do like 2 more. Angela Lowe asks, do you like tea? Love tea. Oh my goodness, do I love tea. I absolutely love it. I stay away from caffeine because, as I talked about, caffeine is terrible for blood pressure. Caffeine is really not good for blood pressure. I don't care if it's natural or not. Cocaine comes from a plant, okay? So let's not go the whole it's natural route. It's a chemical that does really bad things for blood pressure. And so I stay away from black tea, I stay away from green tea, and I go with herbal teas. My favorite tea of all time, honestly, right now I'm hooked on it. It is a peach tea, and it's made by Celestial or Celestial. I don't know. It's Celestial Harvest, I think, and they make a peach chamomile tea. It is, for those that have, because this is my weakness, for those that have a love for peach rings, okay, those little candy peach rings, those little gummy things, we're going down a very dark path there. I could eat a whole package of those suckers. The tea smells identical to peach rings, and it is just a wonderful tea. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I love. So, let's answer one more question here, and we'll do one more little thing that I've learned here. Oh, Celestial Seasonings. Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's called Celestial Seasonings, and I love it. I absolutely love the tea. It's really great. It's a fantastic one. Also, I mean, we get chamomile and mint tea from our garden. We have videos on that. How to survive is a quick one, so I won't really count it. How to survival, do you make kombucha? Yeah, we've made kombucha in the past. It's just we have such a busy schedule. It's one of those things, as lazy as it seems, I just buy kombucha from the store, waiting for the open ridicule right now. It's so much cheaper to make it yourself. I know. I already know all the things. It's incredible. It's really great when you can make it yourself. The problem is we're putting in 70 to 80 hour work weeks right now in our busy season. I don't have time to make kombucha. I just don't. But during our slow season, I loved it. It was, oh my gosh, it's amazing. We'll answer one more. A lot of people saying that Celestial Seasonings are owned by Nestle. Folks, I don't really know how. It's not the time or the place to talk about this. There's a lot of bad things that companies put out. It doesn't mean that it's bad itself. It's a conglomerate. Nestle is a conglomerate. Monsanto is a conglomerate. I'll get a lot of flack for it. I don't care. It's my opinion, and it's the truth. being a business owner, if I have the choice to carry GMO seed, okay? I have the choice to do so. I don't believe in it, whatever. I'm using this as an example. Nestle has a chance to sell GMO products. They have a chance to bottle their water and sell it, at exorbitant prices. Do I agree with it? No. Do I like Celestial Seasonings tea? Yes. If the market speaks with their prices and everyone stops buying Nestle water and stops buying Nestle chocolate and stops supporting all the bad things that they're doing, they won't be in business very long if they keep funding those things that aren't making money. So I just want people to shut up about the whole... It drives me crazy about, so-and-so is owned by Monsanto, or so-and-so is owned by Nestle, or so-and-so is owned by... I could give two hoots less because I've looked at the ingredients label, I look at what Celestial Seasoning supports, and the bottom line is that if I'm putting my money into something good, chances are, if everybody does the same thing, Nestle is not, they're not an evil corporation sitting up saying, how can we kill millions of people? They're a corporation saying, how can we make millions more dollars? Okay? If they kill off millions of people, they're probably killing off their customer base, which is going to be giving them money. So I don't use that as an excuse. So you vote with your dollars, as I just saw in the comments box. You vote with your dollars and you buy things that you support, and they're way more likely to keep funding those things and drop the things that you hate. Okay? So the bottom line is the fact that in a free market, you can't just use scare tactics and attack people, because business is business. I don't care what you say, I have to stand by that. That's my belief. Business is business. But the consumer gets to choose, and at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that wins. End of the day. Plain and simple. So if you don't like the Nestle-owned Celestial Seasonings, go stick your head in the sand or go find another brand. I love it, and I'm not going to let someone tell me that I shouldn't be drinking it, because the bottom line is the fact that it's a really great non-GMO organic brand that is completely counter to everything that Nestle promotes that's bad. You just have to support it more than the other stuff, okay? Plain and simple. Off my diatribe. Because that's really honestly the truth with anything. It doesn't matter what it is. So let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. I have very thick skin. Anything that anyone says to me, it's like a duck, okay? Water goes right off the back. So the bottom line is it'll be true no matter what. It's a true concept. It's business. Let's see here. Okay, one more question. A lot of these are agreeing. Thank you all that agreed with me. I mean, I'm not looking for pats on the back. I mean, my opinion is my opinion. You can have yours, but it's grounded in fact, plain and simple. So we're going to answer one more question, then I'm going to get to the last thing that I learned. Great question. Fantastic question. Was asked by Sam Strigan. Whoa, moved so fast. The last question is going to be asked, and we can maybe do a second. We'll do a follow-up. I'll do like a 4-month follow-up, so you hold your questions. Sam Strigan asked omega-3 source. So, as I said, I don't have a problem with fish. I love fish. Fish is an amazing resource for those that add it. For the past couple days or so, I made salmon that I caught myself, and I had some salmon. But did I feel guilty about it? Did my body react to it? No, because my whole stance is not that it has to be strictly plant-based. My whole stance is that it needs to be whole foods based, and plant-based is great. And I still do. I don't divert from that. It's just that I don't want an animal to die in vain. I use every bit of the animal, and so when it comes to fish, that's the only animal that I right now can justify consuming, that I can feel great about myself. It's a very low fat, very high protein, very very good source of omega-3 fatty acids. But if I did not add that, I have a bunch in my freezer, so I don't want to let that go to waste, because that would be very, very wrong. My omega-3 fatty acid source, other than that, is there's quite a few. I get chia seed is great. Oh, I eat chia seed in everything. I add a little bit to my oatmeal. I add a little bit to my smoothies. Love it. It's incredible. Another thing that I've eaten a lot of is flaxseed, as well as hemp seed. So no, I'm not getting high off of it. They make hemp seed that's it's free of I think PC. Maybe it's not. I don't even know. It's THC, HTC. I'm probably naming a lot of different things. Yeah, THC. There we go. I had it in there with all the other letters that I was combining. So HTC is a brand. THC is a chemical. PCP is really bad for you. So they make hemp seed, and it's really great in smoothies. It's awesome. It's actually a great protein source as well, and so those are great. Another thing that I do have is purslane. Purslane is a phenomenal source of omega-3 fatty acids. In fact, the Chinese called it the memory plant, because omega-3s are a very crucial fat to have in the brain for brain function. Another thing that I consume a ton of, and I mean a ton of, is avocados, folks. Avocados. It is my second love, or maybe my third. There's Cindy and Geneva, kind of tied for my first love, and then there's like avocados. Avocados are so amazing. They're creamy, they're rich, they're very amazing in beneficial fats, and they're very high in omega-3 fatty acids. So I have a lot of I use avocado oil anytime I'm doing any cooking at all. I use avocado oil. It has a very high smoking point. It retains a lot of its enzymes, a lot of its beneficial properties, even once cooked at a low temperature, as well as the fact that it's so high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for brain function and great for cardiovascular health and things like that. So we make things like, oh my gosh, guacamole. I saw someone say guacamole. Guacamole is amazing. Well, guacamole with like everything. We'll have like a side of rice and black beans with guacamole. We'll have guacamole with a side of guacamole. It's just, oh, I love avocado. It's great. And right now they're in season, so you can get them pretty cheap. We'll buy a whole bag of them, and it's just wow. It's a food that it's so sustaining. So yeah. So that's how I get my omega-3 fatty acids, but it's plenty out there. You don't have to necessarily have fish. In fact, like I said, the only reason why I'm having the fish very periodically is because I don't think it's that bad for me, because I harvested it myself, and it was clearly organically grown, wild caught, everything like that. But also the fact that I just don't want it to die in vain. So we use that, but once the fish is gone, I'll probably just practice catch and release, because I love fishing, and I probably won't keep it for meat, but I will then rely a lot more heavily on the other things that I said, which I do still eat too, by the way. So I want to go into the last thing that I learned before I close. It's a short one, but I think it's very important. I think it's really important that anyone that stuck with us and watched this throughout the entire thing, is that the biggest thing that I've learned is that I have the choice. And it might seem kind of cliche, it might seem kind of silly to end on that, but I realized that I have the power. That was the biggest thing that I learned. I learned that I did not have to necessarily bow down to my cravings if they ever popped up. I did not have to break to my surroundings if someone was eating something that I couldn't eat. I did not have to conform to what people wanted me to eat. I had the choice, and I found that I had a lot more willpower than I thought I had to begin with. I think people often say, "Man, if I gave up bacon, man, throw me off a cliff." I thought the same way. Like, you take away bacon, boy, you better just start writing up your last will. It's almost like a suicide mission to give up bacon. And I thought, boy, if I gave up sugar, refined sugar, man, I don't know what I'd do. or I mean, fill that blank in with anything. If I gave up blank, I'm going to be a wreck. You tell yourself that because you've believed it for so long that you're dependent on it. And I've learned that your mind is so powerful. Your mind can do such amazing things. It can push you through the toughest brick wall. It can when you wake up, you can decide, am I going to have an absolute crappy day or am I going to have the best day ever? And it's those decisions that are made with your mind. No one else can tell you to do that. You can make the decision. Am I going to wake up and have a meat lover's pizza, a whole large meat lover's pizza? Or am I going to wake up and I'm going to have an amazingly colorful fruit salad that has all these great flavors and it's just rich in fiber and water and vitamins, and it's sweet and sour and just so many experiences. Can I have this, or can I have something that I would normally love to have? You can make that decision. Your willpower is so strong, and I really want everyone to understand that, I'm very much still learning, but I'm listening to my body every single day. I am only listening to my body for my well-being, and I can safely say that I'm always progressing, I'm always learning, I'm always striving, but I'm not someone that's just going to roll over and let my mind tell me where I want to go, because your surroundings very much dictate your thoughts. And I'm not saying that if you decide to join this journey that you're going to not have cravings, you're not going to be tempted, or you're not going to be really struggling between that nice juicy cheeseburger or a less than ideal black bean burger. But what I can say is that when you taste that black bean burger, that you made, and it's nothing but just really great whole foods, and it's so high in fiber and it's delicious and flavorful, you'll realize very quickly when you're eating that, it's the decision that you have on the board. You have A or B. A or B, when you have that decision, is really hard. But once you pick B, you say, well, I'm committed to B. I'm committed to the black bean burger. I'm just going to eat it. Once you eat it, you're like, wow, I don't know why I was even considering A. It just fades away so quickly. And so use your mind, think about things, and really try to open your mind. Just go to things with an open mind. People they think they're going to be deprived, but I can safely say that if you think you're going to be deprived, you're most likely living in a very restrictive lifestyle already. You're living in a lifestyle that is restricted on you eating only meat and potatoes, or eating a diet that is rich in things you probably shouldn't be eating. That's very restrictive. If you can't go outside that lifestyle, well then it's just as restrictive. So why not try a different lifestyle? It's going to make you live longer. Statistically, you have a 75% chance, higher chance of contracting cancer on a diet that is very laden in heavily processed foods with meat, cheese, dairy, salt, heavily refined oils, and chemicals. You're living a chemically free, wholesome lifestyle, and you get all the benefits to go with it. And I'm really trying to show you all how I feel and how I live, but I never want you all to think that you have to follow the same thing. I go back to what I said right in the beginning before we close, is that listen to your body. Listen to what's working. If something's not working, change it up a little bit. Have fun with it. The bottom line is that you have nowhere to go but up if you make a decision to change. The thing is, you gotta stick with it. It'll take at least 15 to 20 days. It takes 21 days to make something a habit and to make something a lifestyle. For me, that wasn't really the case. It took like 3 days, 2 days maybe, where I said I didn't have a choice. Is either I'm on blood pressure medication and I'm going to be overweight, or I'm going to change. And the change was so well worth it. So well worth it. I've had people walk up to me that knew me before and they say, wow, Luke, your skin is glowing. You look healthy. You look like you've lost weight. You look vibrant. What are you doing? What are you doing that's giving you so much success? And I just tell them. And I hope that I'm leading by example. I will keep you all posted. I definitely still have room to grow as an individual, as a person, and I have room for improvement. Always room for improvement. There's never a finish line. You're always aiming for that finish line, but you never quite cross it. And so always room for improving. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. And I really hope that you are inspired to try something, even if it's a small baby step. Start somewhere. Sometimes change. Rome wasn't built in a day. Sometimes change can happen slowly, and that's kind of how it happened for me. So I hope you all enjoyed. We'll do a follow-up. Let me know in the comments box below if you want to see a follow-up. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not yet already. Share this video with your friends if there's someone you want to encourage to go on this lifestyle, and just know that you're not alone. Just know that you're not alone, because there are a lot of people that are trying this, and a lot of people are having great results. Don't feel discouraged. Stick with it, and remember, it's all in the mind. It's mind over matter, and you can do it. I know you can. All right, catch you all later on the next episode. We'll see you later. Grow big or go home, everyone.